3 a.m. A phone rings in Atlanta. Female says she was raped. She shot and killed her attacker. A camera crew races behind a homicide detective. The lens blinks. Record. 6 years later, before sunrise near Tampa, a neighbor's Nest camera hears a woman scream into the dark, "Get up! So, die!" The camera never blinks. And in Tennessee, a barber lies in bed with a bullet through his forehead. One of Diori's 3 shots fired in a room that tells 2 stories, suicide or murder. 3 cases, 3 rooms, and the same question humming beneath them all. When is a killing self-defense, and when is it a story someone needs you to believe? I'm your narrator. Tonight, the case files of Victoria Rickman, Melissa Turner, and Rainella Leath. Each insisting they faced a violent man, each insisting they did what they had to do, and the investigators, the families, the juries, and the judges who weren't so sure. Stay with me. Case 1. Reality Kills. Atlanta, Georgia, September 13, 2013. Atlanta, 3 a.m. Detective Summer Benton catches the call. A woman says she was raped and she shot her attacker. The attacker has a name. William Will Carter Jr., 30, a small business owner, father to a young daughter. The shooter has a name too. Victoria Rickman, 30, divorced, mother of a son, a TV crew, inside Homicide, is embedded with Benton's unit that night. You can almost see the fedora, hear the narration warming up. A self-defense case? A rapist off the street? The simplest story often knocks first. But in the back bedroom, simplicity dies fast. Benton steps in and sees calm, not the kind of wreckage that comes from 2 people fighting for one life. The medical examiner turns Will's body. 3 bullet wounds to the back. 9 shots fired in all. Will was hit every time. Self-defense can look like chaos. This looked like control. Victoria says Will raped her. A sexual assault exam shows intercourse, but no internal trauma. Hospital notes mention bruising on an arm and leg, yet on camera, in the hours after, Detective Benton says, she has no scratches, no bruising. Was that an oversight, a misstatement, or the first crack where reality TV bled into real life? And then there's the gun, a .40 caliber semi-automatic. Benton, on camera, speculates the weapon only holds 12. She counts 9 shell casings, 4 rounds left in the magazine. 13 total. And jumps to a conclusion that will echo: tactical reload, premeditation, murder. But the gun's actual capacity? 13. No reload needed. Meanwhile, a parallel story unfurls in the margins. A year earlier, a violent incident between Victoria and Will ended with Will arrested after Victoria hit him with a hammer and claimed he'd tried to force sex. Weeks later, charges are dropped. Months later, another volatile confrontation. This time, Victoria arrested, with those charges still pending when Will dies. So which version of Will and Victoria walks into the room that night? The one where he's dangerous, or the one where she is? Investigators seize Victoria's phone but can't crack it. Time drips. Then a 4-digit code turns the device into a slot machine, paying out 66,000 text messages. A motherlode. Timelines, tone, anger, reconciliations. Prosecution reads in them motive. Defense reads in them fear. In court, 2017. Prosecutor Kush Sheila Ross paints the relationship as toxic. Very Jerry Springer, she says, while defense attorney Amanda Clark Palmer says this is a domestic violence case, through and through, a woman who believed she'd be killed. The state's narrative tightens. Will was shot the first in the back. Near a window, blood spatter flecking the wall as he coughed. Then he fell into the bed, where more rounds finished him. The defense counters, first shots to the chest, then he turned, then the rest, a frantic cascade in seconds. And then, the twist that rattles the room. Selfies. Found on Victoria's phone. Not the glamour kind, the bruise kind. Metadata says they were taken about 24 hours before off the shooting. If those bruises predate Will's visit, what happens to the story of that night? There's more. A deputy sheriff who noticed prior bruises, who gave Victoria his personal gun, who took her to a range, who was the first person she called before 911. Does that look like grooming a victim to protect herself, or grooming a narrative? The jury doesn't need long. Less than an hour after closings, they return. Guilty. The judge imposes life without parole. Detective Benton later backs off the bold reload claim, but insists the verdict isn't about her. It's about the bullets in that quiet room. Was justice done, or did TV shape the investigation that shaped a life sentence? Hold that question. We'll need it again. Case 2. The Camera That Heard. Hillsborough County, Florida, October 18, 2019. Suburban Tampa, just after dawn. Melissa Turner, Hugh calls 911, her fiancé. Matthew Maddie Trussler lies by the pool, cold, unresponsive. She's crying. She's covered in blood. She says she tried CPR. Inside, the kitchen looks like a storm with a heartbeat passed through. Outside, there's a puncture wound in Matthew's back. Inside, a deep cut into his right arm that severed a vein. The fatal injury. Melissa says there was no fight, no violence. Just drinks the night before and then sleep. She's wearing latex gloves. Officers gave her, and she barely seems to notice a Henslice on her own palm, until a detective asks. On the other side of the tape, Matthew's brother and fiancé are told it was an accident. Then, hours later, arrest. The star witness in this case isn't human. It's a camera on a neighbor's garage. All night it watched a black square of Florida air and listened. Sometime around 4:00 a.m., the microphone wakes up. Crashing sounds, voices, a woman yelling, angry, insistent. Get up, stay down. So a bleep, die. And later, a voice sobbing, what did I do? At the sheriff's office, detectives confront Melissa. You told us you slept through the night. She backtracks. Maybe he woke me. Maybe we argued. He was drinking. He had a knife. Sometimes he talked like a demon. Matt's not here anymore. I took the knife. He strangled me. I stabbed him lightly in the back to get free. I blacked out in my office. Is that self-defense, or a new story to fit a recording? Prosecutors find more footage, this time from inside. An ad-timed camera, with timestamps in UTC that were misread at first. Now synced, the clips show Melissa running, hunched and agitated. Matthew walking, calm, unarmed. At my 4:01 a.m. Melissa moves from the kitchen, distressed. At my 4:08. She's at the front door. A faint red on her hand appears. A cut? Maybe. Enough to prove a timeline? The defense says, no. The state says, yes. And then data the defense leans on. Matthew's blood alcohol. Nearly bark 5 times, the legal limit. Could he hallucinate? Be erratic? Sure. But the medical examiner is plain. He'd bulled to death. From sharp force injuries. Alcohol didn't kill him. A blade did. Melissa takes the stand, a gamble most defendants avoid. She paints a picture of a man who drank too much, hurt himself, sometimes spoke in another voice and stared into corners. She says he choked her that night, that she stabbed once to survive, that she hit her head and had blacked out, until morning. The state points out she never mentioned strangulation to detectives. A crime scene tech says, no evidence of a head injury. The jury listens and watches the videos again. A juror later says one line on the audio sealed it. What did I do? You don't say that if nothing has happened. You say it because something has, and you know it. After 5 days of testimony and 7 hours of deliberation, guilty of second-degree murder. The sentence, 20.5 years. Melissa Turner could walk free before 50. Matthew's family will measure time differently. 2 Thanksgivings without him, 5, 10. If Melissa had called for help at 4:08 when she was standing at that door, would Matthew be alive? If the neighbor hadn't installed a camera, what would the story sound like now? Case 3. The Widow on Sway Road, Knox County, Tennessee, March 13, 2003, May 2017. A farmhouse outside Knoxville. David Leath. A barber who worked 39 years in the same middle chair is found in bed with a single gunshot wound to his forehead. The 911 call comes from his wife, Rainella Leath, a former nurse and widow of a beloved district attorney who died years earlier. She tells the dispatcher David shot himself. Deputies take one look and pause. If it's suicide, why are there 1/3 fired rounds in the revolver? Why is there a second hole in the headboard? A third into the mattress? The medical examiner rules homicide within 24 hours. Rainella becomes the only person of interest. Motive? Murky. Opportunity? Maybe. But there's a problem. Rainella's life is entwined with the justice system. Her first husband was the district attorney. Prosecutors recuse. Years pass. Evidence ages. When the case finally reaches trial in 2009, the jury hangs R11-1 to convict. In 2010, a second jury convicts. Rainella gets life. 6 years later, that conviction is thrown out after it's revealed the trial judge was battling drug addiction on the bench. A third trial convenes in 2017. Before a senior judge, same bed, same gun, same 3 shots. A new question. Can the our science tell us who pulled the trigger? Prosecutors argue the revolver's cylinder rotates in a way that marks the order of fire. First, a miss into the headboard. Second, the lethal round into David's forehead. Third, the gold-jacketed round into the mattress, allegedly to stage gunshot residue. Bloodstain evidence suggests David's head was elevated when the fatal shot hit, contrary to a simple self-inflicted angle. The defense counters hard. Cylinders can be opened, cartridges moved, order muddled. Multiple shot suicides happen, rare but real. A defense expert even demonstrates on the coaxial bed. Miss high while lying down, sit up and fire, fall back and involuntarily spasm. The hand tightens. One more shot into the mattress. There's character evidence floating around town too. Stories the jury never hears. Allegations from a man named Steve Walker. That Rainella once tried to shoot him in a barn and only failed when she ran out of bullets. The state wants that pattern. The rules keep it out. What the jury does hear is a phone call Rainella made 20 minutes after she says she left home, asking David's daughter if she'd seen him and noting he hadn't eaten his breakfast. How could she know that unless she'd been there to see it left untouched? Because he was already dead. The prosecution says that's the tell. The defense says it's an assumption. And then, something almost no one in a courtroom ever sees. Before the jury can deliberate, the judge grants a Rule 29 Cochrane motion. Acquittal as a matter of law. Not insufficiently persuasive. Legally insufficient. The judge cites gaps, uncertain time of death, no gunshot residue on Rainella's clothing, no proof she was the last Immock person with David, and an investigative path he likens to starting with homicide and working backward. Jurors later say they would have voted guilty. The judge says that's exactly why the law lets him act, because verdicts must rest on that evidence, not exhaustion. Rainella walks free. There's no appeal from an acquittal. In a quiet end to a loud case, the judge says it plain, there's a difference between not guilty and innocent. Only two know the truth, God and the person who lived or didn't live it. The thread that binds. So what unites these rooms? Atlanta, Tampa, Knoxville, beyond grief. In each, a woman says, He was dangerous. I was afraid. I defended myself. In each, the state counters, this wasn't survival, it was murder. In one, TV cameras arguably nudge perception before evidence is cold. In another, cameras are the evidence, the implacable witness that won't forget a scream at 4 a.m. In the last, the science speaks in drops of blood and the steps of a cylinder, only to be told by the law that the voice isn't loud enough to convict. We want true crime to give us villains and heroes, clean edges, moral certainty. But most homicides happen where love and resentment share a toothbrush. The stories we tell afterward are part memory, part motive, part performance. Sometimes for a jury, sometimes for a camera, sometimes for ourselves. Ending. Verdicts and lingering questions. The outcomes. Victoria Rickman, convicted of murder. Life without parole. Melissa Turner, convicted of second-degree murder. 20.5 years. Rainella Leath, acquitted. At her third trial by judicial ruling, no retrial. Were these verdicts inevitable? Or were they shaped by cameras, by omissions, by the stories each side told just a little better? If you were in those rooms, what would you have seen first, the threat or the aftermath? If a camera recorded your worst night, would you trust it more than your own memory? Tell me what you think. Did the evidence meet the burden in each case? Did the system work, or did narrative tilt the balance? Leave a comment, send a voice memo. And if you want to follow up on any single case, trial transcripts, appeals, or what happened next, let me know. I'm your narrator. This is the best new true crime stories. Next time, a cold case with no body and a confession caught in a way no one expected.